Hi, folks. It's good to see all of you. My name is Nick Onofrio. I'm a high school math teacher at Alfred Fairfax Academy in Kansas City, Kansas. Today, for my book report presentation, we're going to be talking about the book Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics, grades K through 12, 14 Teaching Practices for Enhancing Learning by Peter Liljedahl. Before we really dive in and talk too much about the book itself, I wanted to give a little bit of context about the author and the book's importance. Our author is a gentleman known as Peter Liljedahl. Dr. Liljedahl is a former high school math teacher who currently works as a professor of math education at Simon Fraser University in Canada. A fun fact about Dr. Liljedahl, before his career as an educator, he was a Swedish sprint canoeist who even competed at the Olympics. Now, why this book? Why did he choose to write this? In recent years, it's been very clear that the United States math proficiency is struggling on the global scale. In fact, we rank among the below average on recent international math tests. While there are many reasons for this, Dr. Liljedahl conducted close to 18 years of research into why we are lagging behind, and he came to one main conclusion. According to Dr. Liljedahl, the way current math classes are set up encourages students to mimic the teacher and memorize content rather than actually thinking about it. I know in my math experience, this was for sure the truth. I remember activities like rocket math and having to memorize times tables without really understanding why. In his book, Liljedahl posits 14 different practices that by enacting these practices, you will be able to shift your classroom from a classroom that encourages mimicry to a classroom that encourages thinking. Liljedahl divides each practice into its own chapter, with each chapter having a distinct structure. Each chapter will start by providing a broad overview of a certain idea. For instance, taking notes. It will then move into addressing the problem with notes in a traditional classroom. For example, most notes, he calls them dead documents in that they do not contain any of the complexities and the subtleties that a math problem often can have. He then provides a thinking solution with notes, student created notes, not based off of what teachers put on the board. He will then move into frequently asked questions from teachers, doing his best to address potential concerns in the moment, before moving on to a section where he provides some actual problems to you, some actual tasks, and gives you a spot to reflect on your learning from the chapter. So if you look on the right side of your slide, I've included a graphic demonstrating those 14 practices that break into kind of 5 groups. The first 2 practices begin with the problem in visibly random groups, call for students to engage with math by moving into like open-ended, low floor, high ceiling tasks with a group of other students. Practices 3 through 5 talk about your classroom setup. Students should be working standing up at vertical whiteboards, and that you should make it so that your room doesn't have an obvious front. Questions or practices 6 through 10, all about your teacher moves. How do you answer questions? What can you do to make notes meaningful? How can you make students independent of your help? But also, how can you consolidate information in a way that is meaningful for everyone? The final practices, practices 11 through 14, talk about how can you assess student knowledge? How can you give a grade? In these practices, he really pushes for that standard-based grading idea. So, how have I done this in my classroom? The one practice that I feel pretty good about is random groupings. Liljedahl recommends groups of no more than 3 to allow all students to have a voice. I've got the first 2 pictures on the right are pictures from my classroom. I keep all my desks in pods of 3, and you'll notice in the bottom picture a playing card. I can randomize groupings by handing out students cards as they walk in, and they have to work with the students who have matching cards on that day. I also have started implementing a different check for understanding system. Liljedahl encourages actually not checking student work and providing them with the solutions, not giving them a grade even for trying it. I moved toward this in my top left picture. I call it my for the four. This talks about how I can give students points based off of their work. Finally, a couple years ago, I really started trying to push towards a standard-based system, but I didn't get all the way there. The bottom left picture shows two of our main standards and a competency breakdown that shows each level students will have to hit in order to achieve mastery. These are all pieces from his book that I've already kind of implemented or built upon in my own classroom. In the upcoming semester, though, I do have more tasks that more steps I would like to take. First, I want to start building better tasks. I want to incorporate more of those open-ended tasks, especially at the beginning of the year, so I can really build this idea of thinking and being comfortable pushing and engaging in content as a group. Additionally, I want to continue reworking my grade system so that maybe next year I can really lean into that standards-based grading in a way that's meaningful for my students and also well implemented on my end. So, in conclusion, I learned a ton from this book. I really enjoyed reading it, and it really pushed my thinking in a way that felt that felt truly constructive and really inspiring. I hope you enjoyed listening to my presentation. I look forward to hearing all of yours. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for joining me today.